As a security guard in a warehouse, I was used to working alone on the night shift. I had patrolled the empty halls and checked the doors and windows countless times before. But one night, something was different. It started with a faint sound of footsteps that I couldn't quite place. I stopped in my tracks, listened intently. I could see every corner of the warehouse from where I stood, but there was no one in sight. I shrugged it off, assuming it was just my imagination playing tricks on me. But the sound continued, getting louder and closer. My heart began to race as I realized that someone or something was in the warehouse with me. I pulled out my flashlight, slowly making my way towards the source of the sound. As I turned the corner, I caught a glimpse of a shadowy figure disappearing into the darkness. I chased after it, but it was nowhere to be found. I searched every aisle and corner, but found nothing out of the ordinary. As the night wore on, I continued my patrol, my senses on high alert. I heard strange noises and felt cold spots in the air, but every time I investigated, I found nothing. Just before dawn, I made my way back to my post. As I settled in, I heard a final laugh, this one right behind me. I spun around, but there was no one there. I was utterly alone. I was a custodian at the local elementary school. It was a hub of activity during the day, but at night, it was still and silent, save for me, the custodian. I took pride in keeping the school clean and well maintained, but there was something about the building that made me uneasy at night. One night, as I was going about my usual duties, I heard the sound of scuffling footsteps. I tried to brush it off as my imagination, but suddenly I saw it. A shadowy figure was following me, darting in and out of view. I tried to run, but the figure seemed to be everywhere at once, always just out of reach. The next day, the community was rocked by tragedy. A senior from the local high school had been killed in a horrific accident on the road in front of the elementary school. I couldn't shake the feeling that the shadowy figure was somehow connected to the accident. That night, as I was doing my rounds, I noticed something strange on the security footage. The shadowy figure was back, following me around the school. I tried to stay calm, but the figure seemed to be drawing closer and closer. And then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the shadowy figure was gone. I never saw it again, but I could never shake the feeling that it was still watching me, waiting for its chance to strike again. Years have gone by, and I am now retired. The incident faded in my memory, but I could never forget the terror of that night, or the feeling of being hunted by something beyond my understanding. As a hospice nurse, working alone on the night shift, I had seen my fair share of death. It was a job that required compassion, patience, and a strong stomach. But even after 20 years of experience, I wasn't prepared for what I encountered in the old Catholic church that had been converted into a hospice facility. The building was ancient and had been remodeled several times, with creaky floors and dimly lit hallways that seemed to go on forever. I'm a big guy, standing at 6'3", but even I felt uneasy walking through those dark halls at night. One of my duties as a hospice nurse was to wash the bodies of the deceased patients. It was a solemn task, but one that I took seriously. I would carefully clean each body, paying my respects to the departed and preparing them for their final journey. But there was something strange happening in that old church. Several times I would close the eyes of a patient and turn my back to gather my supplies. When I turned around again, their eyes were open once more, staring blankly up at the ceiling. It was unnerving, to say the least. By far, the scariest was one night when a gaunt, elderly man passed away. His mouth and eyes were wide open. His hands were up and out. His fingers spread like he was trying to grab something or someone. I shut his eyes and mouth and put his arms to the side peacefully. I began washing him, then turned him over to wash his back. But I flipped him back over only to find his eyes and mouth were wide open, arms stretched out, fingers reaching like he was trying to grab me. I tried to brush it off as a trick of the light or my own imagination playing tricks on me, but the feeling of unease lingered, and after 2 long years of working in that haunted hospice, I decided that enough was enough. I quit nursing and never looked back. Now, whenever I walk by that old hospice, I can't help but shudder at the memories of what I experienced there. It was a place where the veil between the living and the dead was thin, and where the departed seemed to have a will of their own. I pray that no one ever has to go through what I did in that haunted hospice.